Hey, Inspired Tribe, my fellow freedom lovers. It's John Nolan here. Thank you so much for tuning in. It is Wednesday, May 21st, 2025. Out of the Matrix into Prime Reality. That's what we're here for. Thank you so much for joining us on X, Rumble, and YouTube, and in the live chat. Our wonderful moderator, Ronnie, is here. Of course, Kristin, the wise thumbs in the live chat. And we might even do a little bit of a Q&A later on in the show. Today, I'm doing something that I usually don't do. And full disclaimer, if you came here for some sort of drama, you're going to be disappointed. It's not happening. There is no drama. But in recent months, I know I've been mentioned a number of times on Archaix, Jason Bashir's, and I don't think probably not in a very good light. And some comments were made and things were said that I simply don't think are exactly true. So we had Jason on for 4 conversations between November of 2022 and I believe I took notes here, January of 2024, 4 conversations, I think over 400,000 views in total. And I know that a lot of our audience members enjoy Jason's channel, Archaix, and vice versa. So to me, the whole story is strange, to be honest. We have wonderful conversations, very amicable. We had Jason on because we believe that he is a unique researcher and chronologist with findings that I haven't heard from anyone else, which I think are highly interesting. And the conversations were enjoyed by many. Then a few months later, last year, right before the solar eclipse, we had someone on for an interview who, we didn't know had taken some of Jason's material and sort of presented it as his own findings. Now, we didn't know it at the time and during the interview, but we were made aware of it, came on with that guest, again, clarified that guest apologized. I think it was wrong for him not to credit Jason. I said so. But Jason had later criticized me for not having apologized or just having apologized half-heartedly. And I haven't apologized at all because I had nothing to apologize about. I can't apologize for another adult being and their actions. I can clarify what had happened, and that's what we did. However, calling this a falling out, at least in my perspective, was not a falling out at all. I have no quarrel with Jason Bashir, so I have no beef with him. I don't see any reason why there should be any kind of drama or dispute. Now, when it comes to our editorial choices or whom we feature on our channel and what we talk about, what subjects we explore, we don't let anyone interfere with that. Our partners know very well never to editorialize because Kristin and I are the drivers of the show. This is just how it is. If someone has a different opinion, they're entitled to that. If someone has different views, they are entitled to that. But we're never going to allow others to editorialize what we feature, whom we feature, and what content we post. When it comes to my personal intentions, I'm going to speak for myself here. For those who've been with us for quite some time, you know that Inspired is a body of work, an ever-expanding body of work. You can't pull out 1 or 2 videos and judge the entire content or our entire philosophy based on those. I don't think that would be fair for any body of work. And clearly that couldn't be done for the complex, huge body of work that Archaix has put out over the years. My intention, and I've been a researcher for over 25 years and a public speaker for the last 15 years. And my knowledge base is always expanding. There's always something more to learn and more to know. But my basic intentions have always been the same. And my basic truths have always been the same. I know that we are, at our core, eternal beings, divinely created beings, infinite beings. And that we are, from cradle to the grave, in this system, in this realm, constantly deceived and bombarded with fake information and with poisons and with all kinds of deceptions to make us believe that we're small so we can be controlled throughout our lives. I have always stated that the path to true freedom and sovereignty is within and realizing who you truly are. I've also always stated that I believe, and in my experience, one of the best ways to do that is to reconnect more with the natural space and sort of reject the huge uptick in technology in this realm, which seems to be disconnecting people from their true spirit more than connecting them. I've stated that people should take responsibility for their own lives, for their own destiny, for their own journey, and that we are powerful co-creators who can create individual reality bubbles, which means we truly have a tremendous amount of creative power in our individual realities. Now, after 15, 20, 25 years of seeking and searching and exploring and learning and researching, I've come to the conclusion, A, that there are always more to learn, and B, that in my own personal experience and what I was able to gather, the deceptions do not stop in this realm. In other words, if someone lives a very confused and disconnected from truth kind of life, then chances are that once they leave this body, they will be more susceptible to deception, just like here. And part of this deception, I have found to be the karmic or reincarnation loop. That doesn't mean people are somehow forced to enter that or forced to stay in it. It doesn't mean that a being cannot make that clear choice and a being cannot make a free choice. However, just like in this realm, that is a personal responsibility, and it is a return to spirit that brings that about. So, to sort of close this whole non-drama and non-fight, there is no fight, there is no drama, there is no quarrel, there was never any beef between us and Jason Bashir's. Just to close this chapter, there's absolutely no reason to keep this going any further or any name calling. I fully accept that there will be differences of opinions, but at least in my conversations with Jason, I would have perceived that on the fundamentals, we very much agree, and that in our intention to be of service to those who wish to raise their consciousness, to those who wish to return to who they really are, we are very much aligned. Now, for others who were criticized in connection with us or our channel, I won't speak for them. These are all adult people that can speak for themselves. But I consider this entire conversation closed, in a peaceful and a beautiful way. We have absolute respect for Jason's huge body of work. And I think a lot of people do. And a lot of people have respect for what we do here. And we love and respect our audience. And that's why I wanted to do this clarification here. Now, if there are any questions, please feel free. Put them in all caps so Kristin can find them. And it doesn't have to be related to this subject. Anything you might want to ask, please feel free to do so. And if there are none, that's totally fine too. I don't know if the chat's quiet or active today.
No, active as always.
Active as always. High cap questions. You know what? I'm just going to sit here and take a sip of coffee and see if we have any.
Oh, somebody's asking something completely different. That's fine too.
Okay, so completely different. What are your views on crypto? Generally speaking, whatever we look at as an instrument of value, to me, it has to have either traditional historic value, something that is recognized by the majority of people, or it has to have functional utility, which then will be used by a lot of people. So the general term crypto encompasses a lot. And, for example, the vast majority of meme coins have absolutely no value that is functional or historic. So, it's not an asset that you can touch. And beyond, sort of pump and dump, there's no value in that. Now, speaking free from ideology, what I personally believe or what I think uh, currency or exchange of value should look like, free from that, there are cryptocurrencies out there who have an ecosystem and who have a technological system behind it that actually is an infrastructure that will serve as a replacement for current infrastructures, in that it has intrinsic value for those who wish to use it: banks, institutions, governments, and private people. So in the very, very near future, crypto will be started to be looked at as a true functional instrument rather than just a speculative investment instrument. So understanding that is basically means it will take it from theory into practice. So when you search for such cryptocurrencies that have technology attached to it, then you will find not just utility but value, and you'll be able to use them in the future, and they will gain in value greatly. That this is no financial advice by any means. Do you think? Okay. Do you think is we create our reality from our thoughts, that information such as Jason's with all his followers is actually creating what he says with people putting their energy and belief in it? So in order for I will speak on the individual level. Individually speaking, we have tremendous creative power over our own lives, like our small individual reality bubble. And people have proven that over and over again by completely changing their lives and their circumstances and their health and their everything. We have that. And who we are, what we believe at our core, what our dominant thought process is, infused with real feelings, and what our dominant actions are, determines in which direction we move. Now, when it comes to collective reality, this is the big deal. This is why you have such a huge sphere of, the entertainment complex, the political sphere, the news sphere. All those things aim to reach a lot of people, to create belief and hence creation bubbles that are more on a collective scale. That's how you create a bigger collective reality that is experienced and shared by almost all. That is a much more challenging thing to do. And it requires a lot of attention, a lot of energy, a lot of belief, a lot of feelings, a lot of thoughts and actions. So anyone who can invest and hold and expand a significant amount of energy into a specific vision and get others to join in will eventually create a reality bubble that partially or in its entirety reflects that vision. How big it gets and by how many it is experienced depends on how many are involved in it and how intense and big the energy is that's invested. That's sort of the principle of elemental images and how they begin to manifest, actualize in our visible reality. Catcock says, "What triggered Jason to attack you so harshly?" I think you'd have to ask him that. I don't know. This is a question for Jason, and I don't want to speculate, because beyond our conversations and a little bit of off-camera banter, I haven't met Jason. I haven't had any other conversations with him, so I don't know him that well, and I don't know. But feel free to ask him. Jill B, if you could be...
I
Oh, if it could be 4 people together for a show, who would you have? It's an interesting question. It's sort of, it becomes a panel, and there's value in that. But I'll tell you what, in my perception, in a live setting on stage where you have a panel like 4, 5, 6 people, and they sort of comment on a given subject or ask each other's questions, that seems to work really well. Online, more than 3 is usually kind of tough because of lagging and all that. So from a technical standpoint, I don't enjoy these big panel discussions online, but there's a number of people that we'd love to interview, and there's a combination that we'd love to have. I'll tell you which one has been in the works for a while, is a trio conversation with Frank Jacob and Greg Braden. This one has been in the works, and I'm teasing it here, where we're all on board. We just have to align our calendars to do it. Jill Suzanne, watched Jason's live stream yesterday, and he seems to have an issue with the whole soul trap concept and a few of your previous guests. Like I said, I'm and that's his right. His right is to have a different viewpoint and opinion and perspective. And it's his channel and whatever he wishes to say there. I just wanted to set the record straight from our side. And when it comes to this whole reincarnation or soul trap thing, it is, an option. So when we say stuff like trap, it's like the trap that's in the garage that you said for a mouse. It's an option. The mouse can take that path, right? It doesn't have to. It still has free will, and it can choose a different path. And many mice do. And so we have never said that there is some sort of unbreakable bond or something that someone cannot transcend, that a soul cannot transcend the deception in this realm and beyond it and make a free choice. We've only said that there are deceptions, and that these deceptions should be known about, and that since we have a memory wipe when we come here, we sort of started with a huge disadvantage. That's all that we ever shared. Rob says, if Jason invited you on his channel for a discussion, would you accept? I don't see why. There's no reason not to accept. I don't think I've ever turned on a conversation. If this is about 2 adults sitting together and sharing perspectives and viewpoints, and frankly, to be quite honest, a discussion on his body of work and as a chronologist would sort of be fruitless for any viewer to have me on board on that, because that's not my area of expertise. I haven't invested decades into this. So if we talk about the human experience, if we talk about how we relate to all of it, if we talk about what holds us back, if we talk about how trauma and past pains can keep us from ever seeing the truth and making truthful choices in our lives, I'd be more than happy to discuss that.
Hold on. There you go.
Jean, do you believe the Phoenix event, eventually followed by Nemesis, will come to pass with all of Jason's deep research that said, I believe it's part of our resets? How about you? So for me, beyond the shadow of a doubt, my findings have shown that we are going through reset and semi and full-on catastrophic events, and that this has been going on for eons. So there's no doubt in my mind that this has been happening. But once again, Jason has found a particular pattern that points in our sort of in our space of history to the years, I believe, 2040 and 2046 for Phoenix and Nemesis. And all I can say is that the guy has spent a lot of time researching this and deciphering patterns and decoding things in very, very old literature and combining and cross-referencing. So I can't say, you know, in a scientific way, I know this to be true, but I have no reason to doubt his findings, if that makes sense. Do you think we will ever move forward as a species or continue destroying one another over simple miscommunications? You know, to say that we won't is given up and given in, and I've never been one to do that. If I look at my own personal journey and, you know, where I was 20, 25 years ago, where I find myself today, it's been a very um, challenging, but subsequently always improving journey, which means I see myself as a much better version of me than I was 20 years ago. And I assume that 10 years from now, that will be true again. So the best that we can do is hold ourselves to that standard to become better every day, not in a like egotistical way, but just take baby steps, excuse me, to greater improvement. And you know, there is such a thing as critical mass, that if a significant number of beings here do that and continue to do that, there's also the concept of consciousness compensation, which we've talked about quite a lot lately, where if people rise above a certain level of consciousness and embody sort of higher principles, really embody them, they compensate for those who don't. So all of that speaks for the fact that it is possible, but it is our commitment to it really that determines that. Have you guys taken the steps to legally step out of the system, like the life claim or changing passport? If you haven't, have you thought about it? So the exploration of sovereignty and natural law versus statutory legal systems, the unconscious attachment to the systems, the legal adapter that allows for living, breathing flesh beings to be sort of sucked into the legal system. I have studied that for years and years, like in depth. I've studied the law, I've studied the legal system. We've talked to judges and attorneys, and over all of this and teaching this, what our findings in seminars, we were investigated and surveilled and whatnot. So, you know, this has been a long-standing area of research, many years, decades even. And what I have found beyond anything is that, as everything else, it's a spiritual journey. So, in other words, you could have a mental understanding of these concepts and then go and write all kinds of documents or make declarations or affirmations or affidavits or withdraw consent or change documents, or you could go down this route. And mostly, because it is sort of, for most, it's a confrontational route, it leads to a lot of trouble and really less sovereignty and freedom than before. On the flip side, if you know who you are, then you don't need to declare. You don't need to, in my perception, I'm not giving any advice. You don't need to do all these, jump through all these hoops, because as soon as you declare something to someone or pledge allegiance to something else, or switch from here to there, you're just acknowledging another system of authority over you, just a different one that feels maybe more aligned with you, with your principles, with how you view natural hierarchy, and that all might be good and well. But if you embody on all levels who you are, that's what you radiate. And then the whole document situation and what's written on paper is really none of our business as living, breathing beings, because we don't really do those things. See, this is the statutory, this is the commercial system and how it operates. But we are not commercial beings in nature. We're living, breathing beings. And so you won't see a bird or a deer or a squirrel worrying about contracts and worrying about identification and all those things. So I know this sounds more philosophical, but it really is way more practical. And we have simply stepped into this knowing that it's really a spiritual perspective, and the rest is what the world worries about, but not so much what I worry about. All right. I want to thank you all for tuning in. And this really was not a public service announcement. It was more for those people who are a part of both our audiences. And I could say let's bury the hatchet, but in my perspective, there never was a hatchet. There's nothing to bury. I just wanted to get this out of the way, clear it all up where we stand on this. And I'm sending love and blessings to everyone who's watching this. We love you. We appreciate you. And we will be back with you again very, very soon. Your environment shapes everything, your thoughts, your health, your energy. But most people never question the invisible field they live in. We did, and that's when FLFE found us. It's not a product, it's a field of pure life force energy that lifts everything it touches. We now live in it 24/7, and we would love to invite you to experience it too. Start your free 15-day trial now. No pressure, no strings attached. Just the truth, resonance, and peace.